Unmute.
Good afternoon. Please join us in the Deschutes County Board of County Commissioners meeting, Monday, April 15th, 2024. Normally it's known as Tax Day, but today we have something special to add to April 15th, and it is Environmental Health Specialist and Wastewater Specialist Day in recognition. We want to recognize the amazing staff in health services and community development that work to keep our community safe and protect the public health. So, if you haven't mailed your taxes yet, you need to file your extension by today, and they need to be paid by today. So it's a fun day, but we thank our health department and our wastewater department because they are critical to our county. So we're going to.
Another note on that then is Sun River. I know last week you had the Water Users Association. So this is Water and Wastewater Operators Association. They had their statewide conference here in Central Oregon. So there's people all across the state with water and wastewater systems and the on-site system. So yeah, we want to thank everybody working in that domain. That's pretty exciting to know that we can manage this resource with best available technologies.
And even better technologies, if we can bring them in from outside.
And it goes from there.
States.
Exactly.
Yes, even better technologies. So we're actually going to start out with item number 2 first today. Robert.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today we are here to talk about ORS 310-800 property tax work-off programs. I'm Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer from Finance, and I am joined online with Jason Rocky, Property Tax Manager from Oregon Department of Revenue, and if we can bring him online. He is online.
Just a quick point of order of citizen input, just in case somebody might be online. It's just
Did we have any raised hands?
No.
making sure. Because
Because
we'll hear about it if somebody was ready to talk.
Everyone's at the post office mailing the returns,
Okay.
remember? Or that's what they should be doing.
Thank you.
Okay.
And is Jason able to join us?
It looks like he's trying to share his camera.
I'll give a brief introduction and then we'll come back to let him introduce himself and we'll get ready for a PowerPoint presentation. So ORS 310-800 Property Tax Work-Off Program is Oregon legislation that allows a county to establish a property tax work-off program to which a senior citizen ages 60 or older may contract to perform charitable or public service in consideration for payment of their owner-occupied principal residence property taxes. We did have an inquiry about this at an earlier point, and this is a follow-up really to that inquiry. We're not necessarily asking for a motion today. There's no recommendation, but it's informational to learn about the program, find out what's involved in it. A big piece of this is it is not a funded program, and a funding source would also need to be established if a program did move forward as well. And with that, we can turn it over to Jason.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jason. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, I don't know, I can't see if you can see my video.
Not right now.
Not yet.
You can see me.
No, not yet.
Oh, there.
There we go.
It's getting close.
I will say also one more comment while we're getting the technicalities worked out. We did do a survey through the tax assessor groups and the tax collector group, and we're not aware of any other county that has established such a program as this here. And that's also why DOR is here, because they haven't established their rules or any instructions on it as well.
It looks like she's authorizing you to share and then it just goes away. Well, we can hear you. And we do have the presentation in our packet.
Yes, we do have it.
Okay, well, I can get started on it and we'll just start going through this. Since you can see, I'll be working off essentially the PowerPoint that I provided. So, my name is Jason Brocky. I am the section manager for the Department of Revenue in charge of property tax administration oversight. Oversight to our local governments and counties on property tax administration. So that's who I am. And there's some more information, contact information in the slideshow to ever reach out to me. So we've been asked by a couple counties in the past, and most recently Deschutes County, for some more information on this property tax work-off program. As Mr. Tintle described, this, to our knowledge, has not been implemented in any county or local government that we're aware of. That being said, it doesn't necessarily require that anybody ask the DOR if they can do it, or even how to do it if they choose. So somebody could have done this program. We are just unaware of it since it's been enacted in 1993. So on the agenda today, we're just going to go through a quick overview, some background information, who's basically eligible for this, some definitions, considerations, discussion of the Massachusetts program that they have going on. And the reason I mention them is they had a pretty in-depth website that went into the rules and regulations around their program. So it's very informative. So to begin with, on the overview, an eligible senior citizen or somebody who's authorized by the entity may enter into a contract with the tax exempt entity to perform charitable and public service to pay the property taxes on their behalf for their homestead property. The taxing unit, the local government unit, may enter into that agreement with that tax exempt organization. They accept that volunteer work for public service from the senior citizen or their authorized representative. In addition, the law allows that the taxing unit may provide funding. They may make grants for this organization. What we do know is that there is no state backfill of funding for this. There's no provision that the state would fund this. So background is House Bill 3036A in 1993. It's brought forward and basically implemented the authority to start this program. There's only some minor comments from the LRO economist, Steve Meyer, about this, and it was basically just going over a description of the program. Couldn't find anything else that talked in depth about the real intent. I'm not saying it's not out there. We just don't have that information that I could find and some of my staff could find. So not much to go on about any other clarification. So this was implemented in 1993. It was amended every year until 2015, but the only amendments were basically to update the dates of allowance. So every 2 years, and then eventually every year, they would meet and just sit and discuss, okay, this is effective for the next year, just move it down the line. There really was no substantive change to the content and context of the statute in any of those sessions. So, in other words, no other clarification or indication of potential changes were identified. All right, so moving on, eligibility. Again, we talked about the senior citizen. They have to be 60 years or older. That's really the only requirement. There's no mention of any of the requirements like income, thresholds, minimum incomes, maximum incomes. So anybody, a senior citizen, 60 years old or older, and that they own, it's their primary owner occupied residence, homestead. That would be the one that would be can apply and for the taxes extended upon that particular homestead. And then again, also that an authorized representative, as long as they're authorized by that tax exempt entity, then that somebody could work on their behalf. And we're not really sure who that might be. It could be, obviously anybody that applies. It could be somebody that's a caregiver, maybe, or a relative, or maybe somebody that does the work, on behalf of the exempt entity, they're assigned. And these are just things I'm throwing out there as theories, but we don't know who that might be. All right, so and then moving on, so the taxing unit is county or city, high school, common or union, community college, district, service district, various taxing units that can impose property taxes against the property for various reasons, obviously. And then
Question.
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne. So we're a board of commissioners, Deschutes County. We've got our assessor office. We put the tax bills together. But right now we're talking about individual taxing units. So you put that in perspective for me, as in, would we authorize the program for a district to have this discussion, or would we do it across all districts, or, any concepts there for clarity?
So, the statute again doesn't offer much clarity. It just says a county or city or high school, common, college district. So it's really open, anything that might fit along those. So as a county, you might enter in that agreement with a charitable organization to do this. High school may have that same. So we don't really have that well defined, other than it's very broad.
So yeah, to be defined, kind of.
Here's maybe another way of getting at this. We see in our community on a regular basis requests for property tax relief for certain kinds of projects. And then oftentimes, in order for that tax relief to move forward, 51% of the taxing districts that would be affected, or taxing districts representing up to 50% of the taxes that would be collected, have to agree. And then if that over 50% agree, then basically it happens whether the other 49% of the taxing districts wanted to or not. For a program like this, would we want to have that kind of a process to essentially check this with all of the taxing districts that would be affected? Or can we do this just for the county portion of property taxes that are collected?
I think if we were at the county level and wanted to put this program.
Could you speak up possibly, just fade away a little bit on our side?
Okay, sorry. Yes, if it was the county that wanted to put together this program, so you're right, there'd be some downstream effects, possibly on revenue. But again, that's not necessarily understood, because in theory you would be getting the revenue paid. So there really wouldn't be much of a change to the distribution downstream to the districts. So whether or not you could do it without asking, I don't know the answer to that question. I could research that and how much anybody else would have to be, in favor of it. Is it a majority or whatever that might be? I don't know the answer to that question.
I can tell you that legal's looked into that very superficially. We haven't done real deep into legislative history, but we don't believe that you'd have the ability to impose that on the districts. It's only the identified districts in the statute, and you don't have anything to do with college districts and all of that stuff. So essentially, you could impose that for the county, and I believe you probably could also for 911 as well, since you're the governing body. If they fit, I don't know if they fit under that laundry list of entities that have the ability to do this. But that was at least our initial take. We didn't do any legislative research on it yet. There might be something in the history back to 93 that speaks to that a little better, but we read it to be that you couldn't impose this on other districts.
Yeah.
And procedurally, I mean, did I just hear correctly that we would actually we would still collect the property tax and then it would be like a refund of some kind, or?
I think that's between Robert and Scott could probably answer that better.
Yeah, to me, it's at the end of the day, and I don't mean to sound counts. We don't,
Come on,
all right, for the
Please
record.
identify yourself.
Scott Langford, Deputy Assessor, adjacent. At the end of the day, we don't care who pays property tax. That if you want to pay all our taxes, it's perfectly okay.
Thank you.
And then there's no lien on that property, so I think this is just a mechanism that you can do some sort of a work off. So because we're still gonna value the tax that individual property no differently if this program's in place or not.
So somebody's
So
gonna pay the
everybody's-
property tax.
All the districts are kept whole. Now, the county, if they're gonna fund this, might be paying the taxes for the school and the rural fire district and all that, because that's part of that total tax bill. I don't know if that helps or not.
So the envision of this is not that property tax can't be abated, because we still have to pay all the districts. So a customer's account, their total combined tax is $3,000 for their property tax. So they'll be able to establish, if it's established, a work-off program where that they can earn up to whatever amount and be applied. Say it's $1,000, it could be applied to their property tax, so it's like a payment. All the districts were still required to pay, all the districts distribute the funds out, because the property tax bill doesn't have a set amount. I mean, it lists all the tax out, but when we make the payments, the tax collector distributes the funds to the taxing districts. It's in full. So it would be as Scott mentioned, if someone wanted to pay someone's taxes, instead of them owing $3,000 now, they have $1,000 credit. Now they only owe $2,000. But all the districts are made whole in there. So it's not a tax abatement program like some of the other programs. Because we're not allowed to abate. The ORS doesn't allow us to abate their property taxes. But I think actually Jason's going to get into that as well. But
Okay. All right, thank you, Robert. Jason, do you want to carry on?
I mean, if I could just ask one more question at this point. So essentially, we could decide, from what funding source to be determined, we could decide to pay the property taxes for the senior that's participating in the work off program.
that's what the program would allow according to the ORS, that there was rules and programs.
And any of these other kinds of taxing districts could do the same. They could say, oh, well, for that senior that did that work off, we're gonna contribute these funds to pay their property taxes. And so, I mean, these three listed on this page, on this slide, is that all the taxing districts, or is that only a couple of different kinds of taxing districts?
I believe that's a couple different types of taxing districts. And to be honest, I have no idea what a high school district is. So maybe Jason would help us out with that.
I mean, I don't see park district listed here, or I don't see fire district listed here. So,
The ORS.
Right.
Exempt entity. may establish a property tax workout program.
Yes. Are we okay to proceed or?
Yes, please.
Do you have
Okay.
anything else to say about that?
Yeah, so the statute lists those particular districts, okay, so you have a high school district is like an education service district, ESD. So they talk about high school common review. Then the community college districts, probably a similar thing at the community level. And then it just says county or city. It does not specify, rural fire, it doesn't specify, any other district other than what's here. That's as clear as it is in the statute, and we don't have any other clarification. When they said county, did that mean anything in the county, any districts in the county? Or it does not say, so, just like I heard a gentleman, speak up earlier, we might have to do further searches and speak with DOJ to determine what the legislative intent there was. Are these the limited districts? And tell us, within a county, could it be any taxing district? We don't have that clarification, unfortunately.
Standard statutory interpretation would be when they list, that's who they include. If it was all taxing districts, in theory, the legislature would have said all taxing districts. So we've interpreted it that that's the limited districts that would have the ability to potentially incorporate this program and start writing checks on behalf of senior citizens that are working for 501c3s. So it's limited.
Yeah.
Right. That's our understanding at this point.
And I think in a lot of instances, a fire district, you can see why they don't have any, if they have 2 nickels left at the end of their tax year, they're happy. So these tend to be the larger districts that are going to have more dollars. I would assume that's why it's listed in that. But who knows? Again, it's
Yeah.
31 years old. No one knows what it means. And doing the legal research, that might be difficult too, frankly, researching back to 1993. Most of that stuff's not electronic. It's much more difficult. That could be a 2 or 3 day chore at the state archives office, going through paper folders and finding scratch notes, and maybe get reference to a tape recording that might 31 years later still be something you can listen to. I don't know. It won't be as easy as the more current legislation in terms of looking up what the intent was and how broad they wanted this to apply. I think as Scott and Robert said, the real key is, for your purposes, if you're just looking at it from the county as the county governing body, if you want to write checks on behalf of seniors because they're helping out some 501c3, or not. And I guess if you are, obviously where's that money coming from? And as they indicated in Robert's memo, there's a tax impact to the senior. They don't just get a free push, they're getting a gift, and the IRS says you pay taxes on gifts. So, and I don't know, DOR might also tax it on some level beyond the property tax. I don't know if you're gonna be paying Oregon income tax on it as well.
Oh, Lord. Like, of course,
And that might explain why in 31 years, 36
nobody's bothered
counties
to
haven't
use
done
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're probably not the first one to go down this path.
Well, you feel so badly for senior citizens at this point in time because inflation is so bad. And I know our property tax bills are going up, and, their income is not keeping track. So and yet, of course, that would be a gift, wouldn't it? And then you would get it on your next year's tax return.
It would be considered taxable income, and then everyone's tax situation is different. They would have to check with their tax consultant to see if it's taxable income. Correct.
So it's not a tax abatement.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. It's hard to, not being in the room, it's kind of hard to see where we're at in the conversation, so I'm trying to follow along. So if you don't hear anything from me, and just say, Jason, start talking again, and I will do that.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so as you know, as you're aware, there are a few things that would have to be worked out. To understand more about the taxing unit and that party in this whole transaction. And honestly, Deschutes County to date, you're the only one we are aware of that has actually been interested enough to further this conversation, the question with this. So, again, we haven't done all the research, like the gentleman was mentioned, to find out exactly, but we've done a little bit, in preparation. So, moving on. So then the next thing is who's the tax exempt entity? Well, essentially it is the exemption is the exemption for federal income taxes, the 501c company. There's various levels of types of 501c companies, but I put it in these groups as the most common: charitable organizations, and then advocacy groups, educational and artistic groups, government entities, and then the government entities. That's an interesting question: is who are they? They could be other taxing units. Municipal governments, municipal corporations. What is that? And then, of course, religious entities. So any of these entities could start up a program where they wanted to help seniors pay their property tax. And this mechanism could be used where, okay, well, we'll get in a contract with the county, and you come and work for us, and we'll pay a certain portion or maybe even all of your property tax bill. See, that's our understanding of how this would work. They set it up. We have you come and work in our store, or you do whatever the work may be. I guess the one I can think of is some like St. Vincent de Paul, where they might have a program where you come and work for them. You work in the store, you've been greeting, you do retail work, and your paycheck will go to pay your property tax. So they would, they would work, they'd get their whatever income they get through that program, and then they would cut the county a check on behalf of that person. So it's wide open as to really who can do this and who could come to you and say, hey, I'd like to do this. HUD, another one I was thinking about is HUD does this Habitat for Humanity type stuff. Maybe that's an option. So again, there's a lot of things where programs that could do this. They've done it in other states. They can do it here. I just don't know where or what the desire is. Any questions about the tax exempt entities?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Couple more slides.
I'm sorry?
You have a couple more slides to go?
Yeah. Okay, and so some things to consider. As already mentioned, the statute says that they're to be considered an independent contractor, so they're not really an employee. There's certain benefits to that. The tax exempt entity doesn't necessarily have to provide benefits, insurance, various things that a normal employee might have, unless they don't have. When maybe there's work schedules or considerations for time spent. But one thing we did learn and understand is that earned income that the senior is working for Habitat for Humanity or St. Vincent de Paul, they're making an income, and that's reported. And that's reported on the 1099 NEC and gets sent into the IRS and the Department of Revenue as as income and it's taxable. Generally seniors, and well, maybe seniors in the position where they need taxes written off. Maybe their income isn't so high, so their tax bracket may not be a huge consideration, but it is still a consideration. The taxing unit, the government unit, may decide to be considered an employer. They may say, well, go ahead, we can be listed as an employer, we'd like to do that. But there's also considerations there. You know, they might have to report all the earnings and report it for purposes of unemployment compensation. So they'd have to pay into that. But then also what the statute doesn't say, and it's kind of implied here, or as an understanding in the state of Oregon, is there could be workers' compensation laws that have to be understood if they're considered an employee. So that piece also, we've got to flesh that out and understand more about that and get some clarification there. Another thing, and you touched on it earlier about abatements or credits. At this point in Oregon, the consideration of payment for property taxes, you know, the work that they're doing in consideration of is interpreted to be a monetary, you know, income that would go to pay directly back to the taxing unit or for the property taxes. So where in other states they can be abated or there be a credit, in Oregon we're not aware of that mechanism to do that. And so additional consideration, I talked about it earlier, the only eligibility criteria is the age. So I could be, I could have enough income to pay my property taxes, but I decide to go and work instead. Okay, that's an option. So there's no maximum income threshold. It may be implied in this program, but it's not a criteria currently. And I talk about the consideration of payment. It's really ill-defined. What does that mean? We're interpreting it now as, you know, actually monetary money, a transaction, taxable income. Amount of earnings, how much is allowed to be earned by this person to go towards it? We don't know. Again, they can be worked out. Employment status is a little ambiguous. You know, we know it's an independent contractor, but we also know there's lots of rules and regulations about the contract between an employer or employee, even in situations where they're an independent contractor. I know there's more protections for the employer if they're an independent contractor, but that would have to be probably worked out in the contract between the two entities. Other states offer the compensation, like I said, as an abatement or credit. Oregon does not have that. And then they also bring up, well, what about if there's unused income towards the payment? You know, in other words, they sell the home mid-year, but they've earned and the income to apply to the property tax. Where does that go? Is it a refund back to the participant? Does it go, or does it still go to the tax collector? Still not really defined there in Oregon. Massachusetts, they do offer two work. The case study here, they offer two work-off programs, one for the senior and another one for veterans, despite, you know, the age. They indicate in their law that it's up to $1,500 annually. So they have the amount, you know, they can get it reduced or paid directly. The program in the rules and it's well defined. There's established procedures that any taxing entity or exempt entity can go and look up and understand exactly what's done and how to work out the contract, how to implement the program in their area. Issues such as employment status, treatment of the earnings, everything's well established. Funding for the programs is also established. How to apply abatements or tax credits because they're allowed. How that's done. And then the disposition of unused earnings when the house sells or if they die. And then it's transferred, the estate is transferred. And then the tax year, applied are all identified and rules and regulations that you can easily find and see. So in Oregon, we've not really been asked as the department. We haven't been asked to clarify any rules. We have to write rules. We have the authority to write rules, but we don't. We do it on a need-based, clarification-based, or if we identify something that is, used, and we have to write a rule. So it's a prioritization as well as there is a need there. So that's really a brief overview of this program. If you go out and look at the link to the Massachusetts study or what they do there, you can see the difference between how theirs is laid out versus ours. I believe a big part of their success possibly is their ability to abate or provide a tax credit. Because then, there's a funding revenue loss there, but it's lucrative, or it's easier possibly to set up for the entity, the charitable entity, or whatever that may be. Because then, let's just say we don't understand the full benefit of all that, but I think that's one of the areas that we could probably benefit from. But again, Oregon law doesn't allow the tax collector to abate or provide credits against property tax. Anyway, that really sums up, the overview of what I had for you today. If you have any other questions, I could hopefully provide answers to clarification, or we can have a discussion.
Just a few other comments. I thought I'd jump in and join it. In addition to the considerations that Mr. Brookie talked about, as far as, needing to find clarification whether there are independent contractors, the taxing unit may be considered an employer, and other challenges along with that. We wouldn't want to make a commitment as far as funding at this point until after the board and the budget committee has an opportunity to hear the general fund forecast, TRT discretionary forecast, to know where funding situations may be. However, one option, and the tax assessors here, I just want to remind the board, but also anyone that may be listening, there is currently the senior tax deferral program, where these taxes are, it's a deferral, they're deferred, but the senior, they can apply through the assessor's office, talk with them, but it's a state of Oregon administered program, and they pay the taxes on behalf of the senior. Now they're deferred, and there's an interest rate, I think it's 6%, if I'm correct. 6% a year they pay on the deferral, so it adds up, and then when the property sells, then the taxes are paid off. So there is a mechanism currently, and that may be why, other county might have move forward along with the challenges. We talked about this.
But the senior deferral, there is a means test. So residence requirement, and then there's the median home value, and also their annual income that they're receiving. And it's like everything else when you property tax, it's pretty convoluted, but there is a scale that we walk people through on if they qualify.
So do we have many people in that program now?
We have,
Yeah, we do.
I do, it was 100 and 149, I think.
Yeah.
149, okay, oh,
And then when they sell or they pass away, then the estate is on the hook for that, those back taxes.
so maybe we need to promote that program a bit.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah,
to help people at
it's
this
part of
point in
the
time.
flyer.
I know, but the flyer has got a lot of details in it.
Yeah.
So if we could pull out the people who, they have to be a senior, is it over 60 or is it 65 or?
I think it's 65 and then.
62,
And then there's-
62?
yes.
There is the median home value.
Right.
And they have to be in a certain matrix of that, depending how long they've been in that house. So there's a lot of nuances to qualifying.
Okay. Oh, it's nice to know that 149 people figured it out. Maybe we could add more.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Oregon's program is set up right now with this independent contractor workers, like, we don't want to be viewed as an employer for seniors who are trying to off some of their tax life. That's super unattractive. And I mean, we're not talking about very large amounts of money either. If you know, say somebody's paying $4,000 or $5,000 in property taxes a year. If we're only talking about the county portion, which is what, 17% of that? I mean, it's a whole lot of administrative process for a very small amount of tax relief. It just doesn't sound like the way that the state's program is currently structured is very functional, which is probably why no one's doing it. Although,
So can they,
we could recommend to, some of our state legislators that they look at this Massachusetts program and think about tinkering with what's existing in the state.
so in today's world, can they only defer then the county portion of the tax bill? Or can they do the whole bill?
They defer the whole tax bill.
They can do the whole tax.
The deferral, yes,
Yes.
it's the entire.
It's the
bill.
tax-
I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
messing up this program, but yeah, no, it's the entire tax.
Okay, so that's good to know that does give them somewhat of a breather on that bill in their life. And at 6%, is that state regulated then, the interest rate?
Yeah, it's ebbed and flowed over time, and Mr. Baraki might be able to give you more of a history on it, but they had they keep changing the bar depending on the ability for the state to accumulate enough reserves to pay those bills.
Okay. All right. Well, we learned something important then.
I don't know if I want to be here or not. It's just a side observation. I started in property tax in 1993.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
as of my last day, I'm actually now eligible.
That is-
I'm a senior citizen.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
How
Oh,
are you gonna work off your
Yeah.
property tax?
He's working.
Keep the day job.
Wouldn't that
You're
be
earning
great?
income and paying
Adopted,
your tax.
let the assessor be the first.
oh,
That'd look good.
that would not look good.
Well, it's good to learn about this program. Obviously, I mean, from my point of view, it looks like it's not quite a mature baked program, which we were just presented with. But probably legislative discussion if there was to take it anywhere else is the conclusion I'm seeing from it.
It is valuable to get some information about the current senior tax deferral program, how many people are using it. Probably a significant number more people could benefit.
Maybe we could do a press release on it alone with our new public information officer. Because right now people are going to be incredibly aware in LA County, the property taxes and your regular federal taxes were all due at the same moment, like April 10th and April 15th. So you felt that double weight. Ours, because it's, what is it, a November due date or something? It does spread the funding ask a little bit more over the year. But I think maybe a notice from Kim would be great.
Sure. person come over, we walk her through the program.
I think, I could think it could be really helpful. At least it tells people that we are thinking of them and, it's hard right now for people.
Maybe, I mean, and you could do it now. I mean, there might also be benefits in doing that close to November. Right, you know, right before people's property tax bills arrive.
But doesn't it take a while to actually get you part of that program? I mean, it probably doesn't happen in just 3 days.
Yeah, what's the application deadline, Jason?
For the senior deferral?
Yes.
Oh, yes, that is April 15th of each year. They
April
can apply.
13th.
April
That's
15th.
You mean we missed it? Oh, that's really bad.
I mean, she's quick, but.
365 days from now.
Okay, we gotta let people.
Well, if you believe there, this is Judy
There-
Austin. There is a late, they have changed it, so there's a late filing. Like they pay a fee or something, right? And you can still, right, they said?
Yes, there's a late filing provision up till December 1st. They can apply, and they pay the fee to the county.
Okay,
But that does not go backwards. So people that get accepted into that program do not, it doesn't go backwards. They'll stay on the tax, well, they're still out there. But we close on them and we'll stay in foreclosure.
Yes. That's correct.
thank you, Judy. Great,
So,
great
so in
information.
terms of education and outreach, maybe around November is a good time to put out information. Not for that cycle, but for, not for that tax cycle, but for, you know, hey, you're alarmed because you're looking at your property tax bill right now. Know that this program is available and the application is in a few months in April, on April 15th, and then people actually have time to get it all
It's gonna,
together
again, be for the next tax year.
for the next.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any other questions for Jason?
Well, if I could clarify on, I think you were discussing the late filing provision.
Yes.
So up until December 1st, they can apply for that, for the current tax year. So they've missed the April 15th deadline, right? So up until December 1st, they can apply to get it paid for the current year, not next year's. It's the current year.
Excellent.
If they, taxes owing, then they could put those in stay. They don't go away, but in stay, so you don't get foreclosed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Yes.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go now to item number 1 on our agenda, the volunteer email policy discussion.
All right, I think that's gonna be Stephanie and I, commissioners. For the record, Whitney Hale, Deputy County Administrator.
Hello, Stephanie Marshall, Assistant Legal Counsel.
The item we have before you today is really informational and for discussion. This is a draft policy and we'll walk through it today, but our intent is to get feedback from the board today. And if this is something the board's supportive of, we will place it on the consent agenda for approval following today's discussion. But the crux of the draft policy that's before you today is essentially to create a new requirement that certain boards and committees that are staffed by volunteers, those volunteers would be assigned a county email address, and then they would be required to use that county email account for all communication that's associated with their work on a board or committee. And really, this does a couple of things. The primary thing that it does for the county is it gives us the ability to quickly access records associated with county work in the event of a public records request, which today that process is more cumbersome because those are communications that are occurring externally from our systems and processes. So it's really an efficiency thing for us. It also, you know, for in the event that it was helpful to a volunteer and they wanted to have that separate space for that work, it provides them a resource to do that work in a separate account that's dedicated to their committee work. So that's essentially, you know, what caused us to draft this policy. In doing so, we really tried to pull through some of the language that we applied to employees' use of county assets. So some of the information that's in County IT Policy 1 is mirrored in this policy, just in terms of if you are assigned a county email account, how do you use it appropriately? How do you safeguard the information there? Things like password security. We wanted to make sure that if we're going to deploy resources to volunteers, that we provide them training on how to use the systems. We also would be providing them training on what would happen in the event of a public records request and kind of what our abilities are in terms of gathering any responsive records. And then also just making sure that they're set up for success on the technology side with understanding how to keep the information that's related to their volunteer work secure. I think in scoping this initially, the board's well aware, and I brought a list in case it's helpful, but we have a vast number of committees that do work on behalf of the county. And we acknowledge that if the board were to move forward with this, there's going to be some process changes that need to occur and to be put into place. And so to start, we're proposing that we start with a small group of boards and committees. We've identified 8 that we think may make sense as a pilot to start things out. Certainly that's up to the board. If the board wants to expand or, make that number smaller, that's definitely, we can do that. But I think we'd like a chance to get our processes in place and really kind of refine that before we would consider growing the program. There is a cost associated with assigning email accounts to volunteers, and that's about $14 a month per volunteer. So also with this pilot scope, we're kind of keeping that cost contained initially and making sure that we really understand how we want to assign these email addresses and also how we want to deactivate them if a volunteer's term were to end. So that's a little bit about kind of the reasons behind this draft and what it entails. Stephanie, anything to add?
Oh, thank you, Whitney. That was a great summary. Yeah, we have, our legal department will go through Public Records Act requests. And we've noticed that it's difficult sometimes when people are conducting county business through private emails. And in the past, I understand that some folks have set up their, an even separate email address. So like they've got, like I've got my personal one, but then I've got the personal one that I use for planning commission, that kind of thing. But ultimately, with, the county is responsible for producing those records that are made. And at times it can be more difficult to get access to those records. I just kind of as another comment, I think that it might also help volunteers be mindful of the communications that they're having when they're, communicating in their role as volunteer, whether it's on the planning commission or dog board or what have you. Because, we are, we're outward facing and we have to be transparent. So, yeah, I'm mostly just here to help answer any legal questions. I will be the star of a video to be produced.
Wow.
Not very excited about that, but hey. But, just to really explain, this is not, we're not trying to control anything. We're not trying to be heavy-handed. It really is, we have a responsibility under state law as the county, and we want our volunteers and those on boards and committees to be aware of that, and also to for us to be able to more easily get access to responsive records when the requests are made.
So will they have to be signing in every week like we do with the authenticator and all
I
that?
will need to. But again,
Oh,
I
fun.
know, it is not fun, but it's also kind of one of those security benefits of getting them into a safe and secure system and making sure that all of that communication is being handled in the same path.
So if we can do that for $14 a user, that's pretty good.
It is significantly less than the licensing costs that we have for employees. As you all know, that includes all of the Microsoft applications, and what we've scoped for volunteers really is pretty bare bones. It's email, and I think not much else is where we landed, just to make sure that we're not, increasing costs where we don't need to. So we're trying to be mindful of that.
Great.
But happy to answer any questions that the board may have, or if you have any feedback on the draft, we're certainly happy to.
Well, the 8 groups that you chose to do it as a pilot seem appropriate.
And it's written in policy that would be determined by the county administrator, so kind of giving us some flexibility moving forward to modify that group as needed without having to come back and touch this policy every time it happens. So that was kind of the intent of that language in the draft.
I think this is a reasonable list. I am, since I sit on the Wolf Deprivation Compensation and Financial Assistance Committee and thinking about how this plays out for that committee, there are committee members that want to share all the neat stuff that they read or heard about at whatever seminar with me and with James Pedersen, like every day. And then there are other committee members who basically, the only email communication with them is, okay, the next meeting is this date. Okay, I'll be there. For those committee members, I think this is gonna be kind of annoying. If, for example, the outgoing communication could just be to their personal email address at this. And then if they want to say anything, then they can log into their, official one and communicate back to us. But I mean, if the only thing that they ever do in relation to the committee is get notifications about meetings and then show up, it's making them check another email address on a regular basis to keep track of that is really, it's annoying. I mean, like, if you could forward, maybe if you could set up a forward, maybe that would make it easier, but,
We did have discussions on this topic and actually got some great feedback from internal audit kind of in this realm of worrying that volunteers may miss that notification, right, of the upcoming meeting because they're not in the habit. I think on the administration side, I would certainly be comfortable with allowing staff to send notifications, informational notifications to, multiple email addresses. I don't know if legal, that's something, a change that you'd be comfortable.
I don't see an issue with
Okay,
that.
I think it would just, as you articulated, Commissioner, any responsive communication back would need to be sent from the county email. So we can incorporate that in if that's something that the board would like to see maybe as an addition.
Well, this is an evolving technology world, so, this will be version 1 of this, and then, just look at it once or twice a year for a while, just to see if we're going in the right path, see if people are engaged, and review it for that situation. We sent them one-way communication to 2 email addresses, which one did they use? So kind of take a look at it.
I think it's important to recognize, this isn't a static
Yeah, that's kind of,
situation. So 20 years ago, we didn't have it because there was no
Yeah.
need for it 20 years ago.
yeah.
People didn't make public records requests of people's on commissions and boards.
Yep.
Quite frankly, I think, and not just Deschutes County, I would say statewide, I think people on a lot of the commissions and boards 20 years ago tended to be a little more vanilla. And so I don't think they brought about the interest maybe in getting their records and their emails and what they said and who they sent it to. And I think that's a product of the times as well. So, staff didn't come up with this, trying to change something that's been in place forever. The times are changing, that's somewhat necessitating it. And if we get one of those public records requests and there's responsive documents and we can't get to them, potentially the county's the one that's gonna face the sanction from that through the courts. And, this gives us the ability to be able, anything on that email, we'll have the ability to get. We don't need the assistance of that board or commission member, but if it's on their Gmail, we can't mine into their Gmail account. So we're kind of, our hands are tied. So just,
Yeah, I wanted to chime in too. It's kind of like the pain, especially for maybe those members that aren't as active or what have you. But then, when that Public Records Act request comes in, now they're not having to scramble and decipher and funnel. They can just go, hey, go through my emails. Yeah, those are responsive. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I also just kind of wanted to comment that, that I will go to the planning commission whenever there's new planning commissioners on board and kind of go through things, that include, being mindful of communications, but also giving like the thumbnail on conflicts of interest and what have you. But I agree wholeheartedly with Dave's comment that, in today's world, there's a lot of people, there may be people that are out there looking for a gotcha. You know, what's going on behind closed doors, what's going on behind the scenes. And the easier it is for us to get that information and produce those documents, the better it is for us and that committee member or board member.
I was just gonna offer that. I do think there's benefit for the volunteers as well.
Yeah.
Because they can
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
they don't have to worry about their private account. If they mind the policy and all the work is here, then they don't have to worry about an encroachment and a
Right.
potential records request and then opening that back up. So I do think there's some benefit. Certainly, more effort and more activities, especially if they don't remember their password or their token or whatever the case may be. And I-
Please, who would ever do that?
I don't mean to be pointing at
It never likes me on Friday nights. It's always then. I know. Can we do it Wednesday night instead?
But my only point is I think there can be some benefits. to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and it does go with the territory. If you want to serve on a board or a commission or on, you know, you know, it's like, okay, you know, I mean, you can't just, you know, you have to have that mindset, you know, of like, well, now I'm representing the county in a certain context and to be aware of that and then to just be like, okay, you know, do I have my county hat on? Yes, I do. Let me use my email.
Well,
It's in a stronger position too legally
Yeah.
if there's a request and it turns out that the person had been using their private email account, for us to at least be able to go back to the court and say, look, it's not, they have this option. As opposed to now they don't. So we're essentially condoning the use of their private emails to do county-based business. And that puts us in a tougher position with the judge when we're saying, but judge, what can I do? I can't mine into the guy's Gmail account. It's a lot easier, I think, a lot stronger position to say, judge, we gave them a county account. We expend taxpayer dollars every month to maintain these accounts. So they have a taxpayer-based email. I'm sorry, they want, you know, rogue and decided to use their Gmail. That's, you know, we're in a better position. We're not gonna get slapped quite as hard. I think if we're able to at least point out that we have this platform. They may not have availed themselves of it, but we have this platform. Stronger than just saying, yeah, you know, because what I used to, I think I was even one of the Wolf Committee early on. I used to advise people either get a second Gmail account or be sure to create a file in your Gmail account and drag everything in any way related into that. So if we have a records request, that's all we're gonna need is that one file. But I think most people are a little uncomfortable thinking that their private Gmail is potentially subject to a public records request. You know, because who knows what's gonna get discovered on that. And I can say, someone has to review all those. I will tell you, yeah, you know, if it cuts down on the amount of emails, that'll probably be a good thing. I think I've reviewed over 2,000 pages on this last email public records request. We had a couple weeks back from the bulletin. That was, I think, about 2,000 pages we had to put eyes on and reviewed and potentially make sure we weren't providing people's private information or something that could be included. So we're a big fan of legal, fewer emails, more telephone calls and
Yeah.
face-to-face discussions. Yeah, these emails are the strength of my prescription for my glasses are gonna keep going up in correlation to the email requests we get. Well, the record email requests,
Definitely.
yeah.
So our plan, if we were to implement, would be, as Stephanie alluded to, we film a video of Stephanie kind of explaining the why, and it would also, it's great. And we would also give, training on how to use the tools we're providing, and then we also roll volunteers into our annual cybersecurity training, so they'd go through both on kind of an ongoing basis. And then, we can move forward and start to implement, probably later this year. Imagining it's summer. I think it's gonna take us a little bit to get the video done and then my thought is we would give volunteers a window of time to get the account established, make sure they can reach out to us with any questions, and probably by about June or so, we'd look to be up and running.
Great. Sounds like a good plan. So we don't need a vote or anything. We're just going to bring it back.
We'll make that, change, the addition that Commissioner Chang, recommended, and then we'll bring it back on consent for the board's approval.
Lovely. Okay, so do we have any other items today?
Saturday night was a fundraiser for the Lions Senior Grad Night in the Pine area, so I would say, I have a resume builder Saturday night. I was the auctioneer. I'd never done that before. But there was like $6,000 or $8,000 created for the kids, for a trip for the seniors, graduating seniors, so that was pretty exciting. I'm just looking back at my schedule to see if there's anything else since last week. Oh, career day in Redmond Friday morning too, so yeah, it's all about schools for me right now. Fan luncheon we were all at on Wednesday, which was,
That was actually
last
Friday.
Friday, yeah, which worked out real well. And then I did attend so the FEMA's Region 10 Emergency Communications Committee is a Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. This was all day on Thursday. I was thinking I was going to drive to Salem, but my schedule didn't support it, but I was able to be online. So that's interesting because that is the kind of the response to, weather events, or, the Cascadia would be the big one, but everything in between. And there's, remember, we had like a big ice storm on January 24th in the state. And it was interesting to hear how bad it was in some areas. We had weather here, but I mean, the ice storm and the communications and the power lines that went out. So this is communication. So this was getting power back on and getting radio systems back up for public safety. We heard all about it at that meeting Thursday.
Mr. Shane?
Yeah, I'll share that I went to the public land stewards cleanup event out China Hat Road on Saturday morning. Rained and hailed on us, and a little lightning. It was pretty
I
exciting.
was going to go and I figured, maybe I won't because of that.
Yeah, but it was still a very well attended event, a lot of people there. What I think was of interest or relevance to commissioners was the leaders of public land stewards laid out a whole vision of how when the Cabin Butte project is implemented on the Deschutes National Forest, when a lot of people aren't cleared out of the areas that where many neighbors are concerned about there being homeless encampments right now. The public land stewards actually has a whole concept for getting more trails into that area to create cycles of positive use and lots of activity, which will discourage negative uses returning to that area. Thought that was really interesting and something for us to keep flagged in the back of our mind as a way to, as a place to coordinate if we don't want to see unauthorized homeless encampments going back into that area after Cabin View project is implemented.
Anything else?
To the COCC Meal of the Year event on Saturday night. So.
Okay, so my Thursday was tremendous again. Sun River Chamber, they seem to be doing quite well, getting ready for summer. They're incredibly busy season. Then we had the Health Council meeting, and I got to speak there about safe parking in Redmond. Civic Source changed the rules for Rick Russell's reimbursement and trying to put more notice to that and how we can keep Rick's program going. He's got incredibly great people working, and he's getting pressure from his board because now his funding has got a gap. And then my third event was a COAC that day. The state just hired someone that Christody and I are really concerned about, hiring someone that doesn't have a transportation background. So I sent a letter out, and Crook and Jefferson County both supported us. Umatilla County supported us. The road director over there supported us. And Senator Finley and all the legislators are part of that plea to why hire someone that has no transportation when the other candidate is clearly incredibly well qualified. So worked on that a bit. And then Saturday night, I was at an event in Redmond for Saving Grace, and also they were funding a anti-trafficking program. So that was a really excellent event and it had support from all over the county. Even though it was the Redmond event, I saw people from Bend and Sun River and got to see Debbie Baker and how great she's doing. It ends up, Debbie and her husband were in a head-on, I believe it was a year ago plus maybe, and they're gonna have a court case. It's scheduled now for October, but they are so lucky that they're alive. And she's, was an incredible part of Sun River. She used to be Salem Police and, just such great assets for our community. So it was great to see them. And I know your mother and her are good friends, right?
Yes, they were college roommates.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
Oh, that is that's really wonderful. Anyway, I don't believe we have executive. So are we good to adjourn now? Do you want to add one more thing?
But just the only other item is that since we will not have a full board at our Wednesday, April 17th meeting, and Chair Jared and I today talked about moving the DSL land exchange and removal agenda request. This is agenda item 8, scheduled for this Wednesday, April 17th, a week back to Wednesday, April 24th, so that we would have a full board to discuss that, if that's acceptable. Full board.
I would appreciate it. I know I tried to get it today, but we weren't able to because Lee Randall is not here because of that family emergency. So,
Okay, you won't be there on Wednesday,
right.
so I'll run that meeting, and that's fine if we move the agenda item.
It's, the rest of the agenda for Wednesday will stay.
Yes. All right. Is that sort of unanimous? All right, great. Anything else? Nothing? All right, so we're adjourned. We're adjourned for the next meeting, right? At 4? Can we make it?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think the agenda for this, we posted it, it just says, either leave it on there, just read it. April 24th, or, yeah, I just don't explain the process that.
Email running to all those committees.
So she's doing it via video.